Hey guys, so this is the functional medicine tree, and I wanted to explain this a little bit. It'll give you some good information about, again, more about how functional medicine works. So this is the functional medicine tree. So let's go on to the next slide here. So this is the top of the tree. It represents traditional medicine. We see in these large leaves here that these are specialties, so pulmonology, urology, and whatnot. And that's how traditional medicine is set up. Um, their specialties and you stay in your lane. Even though we understand that everything is interrelated, we still are encouraged in traditional medicine to stay in your lane. So less of a holistic approach for that reason. They do view health as the absence of disease and doesn't really talk too much about actual wellness. It does seek to identify disease based on signs and symptoms of an organ system. Again, that's representative of this tree. Traditional medicine is best at treating acute care situations, emergency situations, critical care. So you're not going to come see me if you have appendicitis and you need your appendix taken out, and you're not going to come see me if you have a broken bone and you need a cast. So those are obviously situations where traditional primary care is that is their place and that is what they're for. And so I do encourage people to have a primary care doctor um, on staff, or not on staff, I'm sorry, to have an established primary care doctor for that reason. Um, and also, there's less focus on prevention and treatment of chronic disease. And that's not so much because they don't want to, it's because there's time restrictions. And just there's just less time for it in primary care and acute care. And that's why functional medicine is so great for that reason. So we'll move on to this next slide here. Okay, so this is the trunk of the functional medicine tree. It gets a little bit more complicated here. So functional medicine is a system-based system because it's organized by function and physiology rather than the organ system. So for instance, assimilation, that combines digestion, absorption, your microbiota and GI system, and your respiration, which is your lungs. So that doesn't go along with traditional medicine. Also, there is a category called energy regulation and mitochondrial function. That's also something that we don't talk too much about in traditional medicine as like an actual reason or diagnosis. We just don't break it down that way in traditional medicine. But the function of your mitochondria is extremely important. So it's definitely something that we need to take into consideration. Um, excuse me. Functional medicine is also science-based because it's based on biochemistry and physiology. So very basic principles that all of medicine can agree on. And that is where all the lab work comes in and the very specific diagnostic testing, like the stool testing and organic acids and things like that. So, and we'll get a little bit more into that later, but I just want you to understand that it is science-based and we do look at it from a systems-based approach. Okay, moving on here, we have the functional medicine matrix. Again, this supports that trunk before, where we see that it's broken down into different systems, 7 different systems. And in the center of that system, we also take into account your mental, emotional, and spiritual health as well. Again, focusing on the holistic aspect of functional medicine. Um, we look to see if these systems here are balanced or imbalanced. So that is what our goal is. We're trying to figure out what you need and what needs to be removed. It is a complex web of interactions between your unique biology and genetic makeup, your mind, body, and spirit, and also your physical and social environment. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is where we talk about a little bit further down your antecedents, triggers, and mediators. So there's a lot on the screen, but it is important to think about. So your antecedents, to keep it very simple, are the things that set you up for something down the road. So perhaps you drank from a drinking well. I'm sorry, you drank from a well. You drank well water that was contaminated with pesticides when you were a child, and that set you up for cancer maybe later on. Or maybe you took a lot of antibiotics as a teenager for your acne, and that set you up for GI dysbiosis later on in your young adult life. So these are things that, again, set you up for something else down the road. Triggers are person, places, experiences, or things that impact or set something into motion. So that can include physical or psychic trauma, infections, toxins, memories, stressful events, surgery. So pretty much almost anything. A move to a different city, a job change, losing your job. So, and oftentimes we'll hear statements like, I haven't been the same since, or I haven't felt good since. So, I haven't felt the same since I went to Hawaii or, went on a trip to a foreign country, or I haven't felt good about myself since, maybe someone passed away. So, these are triggers. Our next one is mediators. So, that's something that's always driving that thing forward all the time on a daily basis. So, things in our daily life. So stress, sitting at your job every day and doing the same thing, or continuing to eat gluten even though it doesn't make you feel good. So these are mediators. And we're going to use these three to fill out your timeline, which is this slide. So in functional medicine, we use a timeline, and that helps us to connect the dots on your medical history, which is a very interesting approach and makes complete sense if you ask me. So your timeline represents your life, your health, medical, anything and everything, to be quite honest, because it's all interconnected, right? So here we would put our antecedents. So these are things that could happen, that happen prenatally. So was your mom stressed? Did she smoke cigarettes? Did she drink when she didn't know she was pregnant? Were your parents getting along? Like, was there lots of drama in the family? So was she under emotional stress? Because that's epigenetics, and that can affect people also. Antecedents also include your family history. If there's cancer in the family, or anything. There's lots of asthma, or everyone has this autoimmune disease. So things like that you would write in this section. Here are the mediators and perpetuators. Again, things that continue to drive us on a daily basis. And then the triggers are those events that trigger problems. So here on the bottom in this blue section is more of the traditional medicine area. So this is where we would say, in 2014, I was diagnosed with a celiac disease. In 2022, I had my first child, and then here are your current issues. So from birth to now. And then here is like kind of where we start to connect the dots. And this can be very therapeutic, because if you've had emotional trauma when you were a child, or maybe you had like chronic ear infections and you always had antibiotics when you were little, you can put that on here, and then you can see that, later down the line, you started having stomach aches, you were only having bowel movements once a week for like the entire time you were a teenager or something. So, I mean, it just helps us to connect the dots. You can always go back and fill in more. And so I think it's a neat way to, look at your health, and it can really help us answer a lot of those mysteries. So moving on to the next slide. So here are the roots of the tree. Here is where we see that lifestyle and our belief system and our genetics all come together and influence all of those other things that we've talked about so far. So functional medicine offers lifestyle medicine, which includes nutrition and exercise, detoxification programs and products, therapeutic diets, stress management techniques, and working through emotional trauma. Along with this, we do a lot of the lab testing, like I've talked about, and through all of this, we're developing treatment plans that fit you, and that can help you get to your health goals. So there's a lot of other things that go along with that too. And functional medicine is great because, our main goal is to try to help prevent chronic disease down the way. And the world of health has known for a long time that modifications to your lifestyle is probably the number one way that we can prevent chronic disease. So I have some quotes here about that. But it does take a lot of commitment and follow through. And I think that's why functional medicine has such a strength, because in traditional medicine, we just don't have that follow up, and we don't have that support. So it's not their fault. It's just the way it is. but we have the ability to do that, and we have a passion to do that too. And I think that's really cool, and that's why I'm here, because I love to do those sorts of things. So therapeutic lifestyle changes are the first line of treatment for chronic disease prevention. So, and let's see. So I hope you better understand how functional medicine works from this viewing this slideshow. If you have any questions, you can always chat with me through the Healthy app, and I will see you next time I see you. Thank you.